This is the Balanced Growth Show with Dr. Travis Perry, helping successful business professionals like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I am your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today we have with us special guest, Mr. Michael Lecours. And we're grateful that Michael is joining us. He is actually co-founder of fpPathfinder. He's also a financial advisor and planner at the Wealth Strategies team. Michael began his career in advertising, where he worked to develop marketing strategies for insurance companies, banks, credit unions, RAs, and hedge funds. Mike, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about how you got on this path to being an entrepreneur and how you ended up where you're at today.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it starts with kind of going back to my father. My father is a financial advisor, and he was a financial planner, one of the first CFPs to come out, got it back in the early 80s. And throughout growing up, I realized that was just not a career that interested me at all. And so after I graduate college, what do I really want to do? I had no idea. So I'm going to go to an ad agency so I can learn about tons of different industries and find an industry I love. And ad agencies in the Hartford area in Connecticut, they really skew towards the financial companies. So as you just read, I started working with financial companies, and I actually liked it. And I started understanding what my father did and how he was helping clients. And when the recession hit back in 2008, 2009, it became just so clear to me what I could do to help people if I was closer and being able to get in front of them. Then if I'm working at an ad agency and we're just trying to write copy and come up with cool, clever ads and headlines. So it worked out well because that's actually when my father was looking to start to slow down. He needed his own exit path. So I left the ad agency, started working with my father, and it was fun. I loved spending time with him, but I struggled with things. Namely, actually being in front of a client and having the pressure to answer questions and provide the guidance. And so after a couple of years there, I'm struggling a bit. I started coming up with little kinds of hints and guides to help me. And a flowchart was one of them. And that flowchart, even though it was internal, it actually really set the trajectory for where I'm at now. Because it turns out that a lot of other advisors needed those kinds of tools, like a flowchart, checklist, to answer simple questions, make sure they don't miss something for their clients. And so slowly over time, I developed a small following, and it led me to Michael Kitces. And Michael Kitces, he was actually thinking about doing another kind of business along those lines. He was going to focus more on checklists, and I was going down flowcharts. And he's like, what if we kind of merge those together and came up with one business? And so we said, let's do it. Start a business with Michael Kitces. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and see where that goes. And so it's been just a giant experiment ever since.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Sometimes business partnerships work out. Sometimes they don't. Michael Kitces, I was on his podcast and gave me a lot of great traction with advisors to talk about balance. Has really, really helped. And I can't thank him enough. For those who aren't familiar with the industry, financial advisors, Michael Kitces is the industry.
Yeah.
He's everywhere. And, I remember trying to get started speaking with financial advisors, and the thing was, well, Travis, what's your fee? I tell them well, you're no Michael Kitces. That
Right.
was what I got over and over again. So I understand the power of partnerships and helping you to grow and scale, which we're going to be talking about today. And knowing that, you've got a big name in the industry who's got, 55,000 followers on his blog. Right. It's incredible.
Yep. Yeah. It's a big following. Yep.
Very big following. And the power of marketing is huge. And so I love what you're doing. Let's just get to the root of balanced growth. Why is it important that as you're growing your business, that you have great balance?
Well, uh, okay, I go back to, I can't remember where I heard this story, but the story was about this very successful businessman that went down to like I don't know if it was a Caribbean island or like the coast off of Mexico, but he strikes up a conversation with one of the locals. And he goes, "So what do you do?" And he goes, "Oh," and the local goes, "Oh, I wake up in the morning and I go fishing and I come back in the early afternoon. I have lunch with my wife. I take a nap later in the afternoon. And then at night, I go down to the local bar and I play music with all of my friends." And the guy goes, "So you're only working, like you're only fishing for like the morning?" He goes, "Look, nobody else is doing this. I could invest in this. We could scale this business up and we could make this huge thing over here. Like we could get seed capital, like do all this great stuff. If you could do that, what would your life be like?" And he goes, "Geez, I don't know. I'd probably wake up, go fishing in the morning, come back, have lunch with my wife, take a nap in the afternoon, and then I'd want to go down to the bar and play music with my friends all night." And so it highlights to me this concept of why do you grow and what is your end goal. And so for me, there's an excitement for me about growing the business. But to your point, it's not just to grow for the sake of growth. There's another aspect to it, and that's to have more freedom. And I say freedom, but I go back and forth whether is it freedom for myself or flexibility. So we can debate that. But for myself, I see that I feel like it's on a seesaw, and I'm always trying to find what is that right balance for me between working on growing this business or businesses and then maintaining the personal life. And I never want them out of balance. Short term wise, you're going to see it go back and forth. Like some days it's going to be really busy with work, and some days there's going to be things going on with your family life, and that takes precedence. But I'm just always trying to be mindful of that balance, right? And I use the visual metaphor of the seesaw because that's how I have to think and process things.
Yeah, I like your comments there about the entrepreneur that would just do more of what he's already doing, right? Like
Yeah.
you just kind of get back, what's the heart? And I absolutely agree with you. That's why the front cover of my book is essentially, those you're watching on the YouTube channel, is essentially a seesaw. You've got
Right.
the personal stuff on the one side and the all the other areas of life on the other. And that fulcrum, that balance is the time. Where are you spending your time? Where are you making the time work for you? So good. So I really resonate with that. As an entrepreneur, with that in mind, trying to keep this balance, trying to long term really be in a better balance position.
Mm-hmm.
What have you done that's been working to help scale while keeping the balance?
Okay, so I know that there's a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs. They worked really hard. They sacrificed a lot, and then they wake up at some point and they're going, "My priorities are out of whack." And I've never had that. My priorities were more out of whack when I worked at the ad agencies because it was a grind working with your clients. And it was so deadline driven. And the second the markets or the economy would change slightly, they would pull contracts back, and then there were layoffs. So, but I could see the trajectory. And I remember when my father said that he wanted to start to slow down, and I'm looking at this, I'm going, okay, we tag teamed for a number of years. It was like 8 years. What happens when he actually retires? I got to pay him out. I got to buy him out. And then I've got all of these clients over here. And this is still when fpPathfinder was like in its early infancy stage. It was like a side project for myself. I'm going, well, they're like, what am I doing? How am I going to juggle all of this stuff? And and at the time, I was getting involved in Strategic Coach. This is a Dan Sullivan program where once a quarter I'd fly up to Strategic Coach and you'd sit down for a day, and uh, that was eye opening because everybody else in that room had hit bottom. They realized that something was completely out of whack with their life. And I'm looking around, I'm going, my dad and I, we work together. We've got a great relationship. I've got a wonderful family. I've got two little kids. I got this wonderful thing. I don't have anything to complain about. I got to make sure that I got to put those guardrails up because if left to my own devices, maybe it would get out of whack. And then I would hit rock bottom, or have a big problem.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I know a lot of my clients, that's where they're at. They've hit rock bottom. They're super struggling with the balance aspect. Or they were pretty balanced and they started to grow their company. Once they started to grow, it's like, oh man, they started to lose that natural balance that they did have. And I saw this during the shutdown where a lot of business owners who normally had great balance were really scrambling, right? It was, what are we doing next? How do we pivot? What are we doing with our technology? Where's our team go? All those crazy issues that we already know, like we dealt with. But they used to have a great balance, totally threw their balance out the window. And then after the shutdown, it's like they didn't ever go back, right?
Right.
And I see this as a long-term thing that, yeah, you might actually have great balance in the short term, but what if an emergency arises? Or what if a great opportunity shows up? Or what if somebody approaches you and wants to do business with you and start a new company that is going to pull you out of balance?
Right.
I'm okay with, hey, if you get out of balance short term, but long term, as you were talking earlier, like that's the goal, right?
Right.
Keep that long-term focus.
And I think that's a really important nuance there. It's also about what happens with the businesses as they grow. And that is where I can find myself getting out of balance. What you talked about, like your exact example, like 100% rings true for me. Like pandemic happens, fpPathfinder, we hit our stride at that point. Like, that's when people really started to discover us because we were putting out relevant content and checklists and flowcharts that could help those conversations that were happening. And it was all new. I mean, you're now hiring people in a pandemic. It's all virtual. Like, these are new things coming at me that I've never considered before, and it's coming at me really fast. And yeah, so that was a challenge. And there's still a bit of that now that I'm still trying to get the balance back just the way that I want.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what is it that maybe you're struggling with there to try to scale and not lose that balance, right? That you have, that you enjoy. And obviously none of us are perfect at balance, but we're always looking to continually sharpen the saw per se. But what is it that might you be struggling with the most when it comes to trying to keep the balance while you're scaling?
There's this natural, well, I mean, it's preaching to the choir right now, but it's that natural tendency, that natural pull to go back to work. It's easy to say yes to something that's work related and have it sacrifice something on the personal side. And you don't see it right away, but it's the habit that forms as a result of that. And so left to my own devices, that's where I tend to morph to. And so it's a matter of me kind of going against that natural flow and say, nope, I got to get out. I got to do something for myself, or say yes to if a friend calls up and says, "Hey, let's go out, let's go do this," then yes, I can do that. I got other things that I can say no to on the work side. Like, that's okay. The business will always be there. Well, you shouldn't say it'll always be there, but in most cases, I'm going to say like it's there. It's going to be there. Work will always be there in one aspect or another.
Yeah. And I think there's a fear there, especially for any business owner that's grown it from the ground up, seed when it was as a seedling, a baby, whatever you want to call it, to what it is now. Is it like, I grew this, right? And I don't want to lose it. There's a fear.
Right.
It definitely consists of what it is that you want to grow it into versus what that sacrifice. So I love you talked about that sacrifice. What do you see as other issues for other advisors, entrepreneurs, other business owners? As you're talking to me saying, you've gone to this coaching, this training, we strategic coach. A lot of my clients even have been through strategic coach. I get it. It's important for them to, come back from having lost it, and I again, like I mentioned, my clients have been there, but who you've rubbed shoulders with, what have been some of those biggest issues that got them to fall off the wagon per se, or to completely lose it, go rock bottom, and now have come into this training or to be a client of mine or whatever it is to get their balance back? What have been some of those issues that really got them there?
I think that's a great point right there, because I don't know what makes financial advisors different. Like the challenges that a financial advisor might have with balance. I see it as like entrepreneurs in general. And I think it goes down a lot to being a victim of their own success. If all of a sudden you find out that if you do this one thing over and over again, whether it's getting new business or calling up your clients, doing the marketing, if you keep doing more of that and it yields results, like, you're going to keep doing more of that. And then you keep doing more of that, more of that, more of that. And, so there was this other issue that I saw when I would go up to coach, and we would all sit around and we would talk about what are the issues? What is bothering us? And there were these two camps that would form. And at the time when I was going, there was nobody I didn't have a lot of people on my team. And so it was always about, how do I delegate out some of this stuff so I can kind of move up and focus in on what I think I'm going to be best at, or where I'm going to be most valuable to help the business. But then there was this other camp where they had gone through that. Now they have team members. They've got a company, their staff, and their challenges, things that were keeping them up at night, were really interesting to me, because now they're saying, hey, how do we hire people? How do we retain them? How do we manage them? And all of a sudden, that's what they're all talking about. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It was always about finding the right team. How do you build that? What's the process in place? And so for me, I guess it's like, that was like this juxtaposition. It's like the people that had gone through this had a different set of issues than others, where they hadn't figured out how to get to the next level yet in terms of delegating.
Yeah, that is a common theme through most of our podcast interviews. We always come to the D word, delegation. And, I like to look at both sides of the equation. What's the offense doing? What's our marketing? Right. And that's a world you've come from. But equally important, however, I believe secondary to the marketing and the sales part of a business is having the fulfillment and operations that you can delegate to. I believe you start with the offense and you build a great defense. Mm-hmm. But that said, what have been some of the issues that you've seen now that you've heard and been through it yourself, hiring yourself. So seen personally,
Right.
but seen with other entrepreneurs, what are the biggest issues there with the defensive side, the delegating of
Right.
the operations and fulfillment?
From what I see and what I keep hearing about and I'm not going to strategic coach right now. I've had to switch to different coaching programs, but uh, it it was trying to find the right person, and it's the old adage of like hire slow, fire fast, and so it was a matter of finding that right person there. I place a lot of emphasis on the processes that those those team members would need. Uh, and and for myself, there's a big difference between working with somebody having a part-time team member versus a full-time team member. Like that, it's one thing to manage somebody part-time. It kind of it tests whether you like that idea of having somebody on the team and can you actually delegate. But it's a completely different animal to me when you go up and you have full-time people. Good stepping stone, but it's a
Sure.
that that was something that I didn't fully understand until I went through it.
So there's this idea that balance, again, is, being able to, what I call being your work sweet spot at work. I know others call it different things, but really working your most productive areas and then being able to utilize the extra time and go home and not be a productive workaholic is what
Right.
I tend to refer to. So what keeps you from being a productive workaholic? Or maybe what are you struggling with if you are a productive workaholic? Let's look at both sides of that coin.
Mhm. Uh, I don't think I'm a productive workaholic. I think I go through times. Like I think it's not like on the edge. But uh, the greatest gift to me has been some of the things that came through from the pandemic, and it's I see it every day, right around 4:30. And when we were all in the offices, remember 4:30, like the phone starts to quiet down. You can get caught up on things. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, it's like 6 o'clock. You're still at the office. You're kind of cleaning up, checking some email. Like it's the day's really getting over. But now that's been an hour and a half or so of like trying to close things up. And then you have the drive home. Or so maybe it's like 4:30 to 5:30 and then a 30-minute commute. So it's like 6 o'clock, you're now home. Uh, I've got two kids. And so around 4:30, I'm hearing little feet running around upstairs, or I can hear them in the other room playing. And that pulls me from work every day. And it's like, I want to get this thing done so I can spend a little bit more time with them. And so that has built a muscle for me where at 4:30, I'm hearing those kids. I'm hearing it. And I want to get things done because I got something else that I want to go into. So as my day is like coming to a close and getting quieter here, you can hear the excitement, the energy in the house starting to build. And you're like, I want to go over there. That's a lot of fun now. The lights at the office are starting to get shut off, even though I'm working from home and I could work whenever I want. I want to spend time with the kids. I want to spend time with my wife. So I think I'd lose that if I go back to the office.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hear both ways. There's office mentality, and some people say they lost their balance because they didn't have boundaries at home when they started working at home. And actually, I talked about this on Kitces podcast a lot during the pandemic, that you got to have boundaries there. You got to create your home office like a castle.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get work done. You're going to want to play with the kids, and you're going to want to be on your laptop when you're with them. Like it just goes back and forth, and that it doesn't allow you to be present. It doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
So having those boundaries are crucial. But I'll hear what you're saying in that, having them there as a motivator. In fact, most people tell me balance to them is their wife, it's their kids, it's their family, and they know that's who they're working for. They're providing for, to be there, to spend more time with them. The ones that don't have that motivation or don't have a great relationship there, they tend to struggle or not even have balance for one other reason of just not having the individual to help them to be balanced, right?
Right.
And if they're great with, hey, I like to work out, I have hobbies, I have these other things, fantastic. But I still find a lot of overworkers there because what are they working for? Like what's the dream? And I'm not picking on single people or divorced people. I'm just simply saying, over interviewing 750 plus business owners now, they typically give that kind of response. My family's my balance. And I don't know I'd have, if I didn't have them. At the same time, the other side of it is, well, if I have an office that I go to, it does allow for a separation, and it does allow for time for me to come home and process before I enter the door, and I can be dad. Right. And I've seen it both ways, and I've done it both ways. So you bring up a really great point that I know a lot of people are struggling with right now, is going back to work, back to the office.
Right.
I've maintained a home office, but I have an office here, which is 7 minutes down the road. So, I mean, it does allow for a quick drive back. What has been the pros and cons for you for having an office in home versus an office outside of home?
Well, I might not leave my house for a few days. Pandemic's over, but I work. My wife helps me with this, but I try to get out and go to a library once or twice a week. And I'm lucky, from where I live, I have a number of really great libraries. Some have like conference room spaces or private rooms, so I can do calls over there just to break it up. Or it's a matter of finding different rituals. And so sometimes I wake up and I just go somewhere else. And like, maybe it's a coffee shop. I go there, no phone, no computer, just a notepad. Say, I'm going to stay here for an hour and a half. I'm going to just focus strategic thinking, write up lists and sketch out ideas. That helps. I experiment with different kinds of exercise. I know enough about you that exercise is important. You've got that built in. For me, that's always like an uphill battle. And so it's like during the pandemic, I bought a road bike. Like a bunch of folks in the neighborhood, they all bought road bikes. And so when the weather's nice out, people are hopping on bikes, and it's like there's like 8 people now that go bike riding together. Or then there's another thing called rucking that I got into. And so this is, you're hiking, but you have a backpack loaded with weight. And there's a lot of science coming out about the benefits of that. But basically you just go on a regular walk. Hopefully you're going on a mountain, but you got 30, 40 pounds in your back. And that provides another kind of balance. So you keep experimenting over there, and hopefully you can find things that really stick.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Getting out, exercising, spending time, library, doing some thinking. Those are all fantastic. We've been talking about some great things here today. This conversation is always fun. You never know where it's going to end up. Similar questions every time, but everybody has a different experience. And I appreciate you sharing with the audience yours, Michael. Where can advisors or even anyone go to find and connect with you?
Yeah. So they can go to fpPathfinder.com and learn more about what we're doing over there with checklists and flowcharts.
Love it. And, are you pretty active on LinkedIn or other social networks if people want to connect with you?
Twitter's probably where I'm at the most.
Great.
My handle there, it's Michael Lecours.
Awesome. We'll definitely make sure that we include that in the show notes. And we're grateful for your time. If you could give one piece of advice to advisors, maybe focus on the idea of preventing, right, versus recovering from disaster.
Right.
But if you could say, hey, this is 1, 2, 3 things maybe that to be really helpful to prevent falling off the wagon or getting what I call the workaholic trap that we've described here today. What would that be? What would that be that you would, give advice to them?
It's actually you need help early on, and coaching is by far the biggest thing that has changed the trajectory of my life. The strategic coach really helped, but I've worked with coaches on a one-to-one basis to help form partnerships, and there's other coaching, like the coaching I work with now. It focuses really on building processes for the business and acting as an accountability partner over there. And so I just can't say enough good things about having a professional coach to help get you to the next level. And there's coaches for everybody. So if somebody's really looking to focus on their business, there's a coach that can focus on that. If it's somebody that helps on the personal side, they're out there. And they come in different flavors, like different approaches, different philosophies. And I don't know where I'd be without it. I know I wouldn't be here. I know that for sure.
Yeah, that means a lot. And, coaching is a phenomenal thing I get to do every day. I love it. It's enjoyable. But I think what you mentioned here is that how important it was for you even to get to the next level. I've used coaches every aspect of my business career and life, mentors that have helped me through many phases. And I couldn't agree with you more. Find the right one to help you. And, part of what we're doing at the Make Time Institute is just exactly that, preventing you to fall into the workaholic trap by growing in a balanced way. So I appreciate you giving us some examples and some real life takeaways, things that you've struggled with. And I hope that that's been beneficial to listeners today. If you've enjoyed this, listening into our conversation, definitely like, share, and maybe there's someone out there who needs to hear what Michael's been through in his journey and his advice for us today. Thank you again, Michael, for being here. And everyone else, remember, until next time, live life on purpose.
All right. Thank you.